Okay, everyone. So today we're gonna focus on Krashen monitor model. Okay, or we can call this model another way. We can call it the phi hypothesis created by Stephen Krashen. Okay, yes. Okay, so right now let's go to the phi hypothesis. Okay, so these are the five hypotheses of Krashen monitor model. Okay, so the first hypothesis is acquisition versus learning hypothesis. The second one, monitor hypothesis. The third one, natural order hypothesis. The fourth one, input hypothesis. And the fifth one, the last one, affective filter hypothesis. Okay, so these five hypotheses are created by Stephen Krashen. Okay, and on the right side you can see this is a picture of Stephen Krashen. Okay, he's a PhD. He's a PhD. He got PhD. Okay, and he specialized in uh, linguistic. Okay, yes, he's a very famous professor. Okay, in linguistic. Okay, so according to, you see here, Stephen Krashen, a picture of Krashen is in the pentagon. You know pentagon, five side. Okay, five dimension to refer to the five hypotheses created by him. Okay, yes. Okay, so we gonna go in a deeper manner in each one of the hypotheses in the following slide. Okay, so according to Krashen, learning acquisition depends much on these five hypotheses. Okay, so right now let's go into one by one. Okay, for his first hypothesis called acquisition versus learning hypothesis. Okay, according to Krashen, there are two approaches toward language acquisition. Okay, the first one we call acquisition approach. The second one we call learning approach. Okay, so right now let's talk about acquisition. Okay, so according to Krashen, the acquirer acquire the language subconsciously. Okay, in an implicit manner. Subconsciously mean the learner, the acquirer are actually acquiring the language, but they do not know they are acquiring the language. Okay, for example, children, they acquire their mother tongue, the first language. Okay, at home they learn, they acquire the language day after day with their parents, with their sibling, brothers and sisters, but they do not know they are acquiring the language. Okay, yes. So right now go to the second point, informal situation. Okay, so when the acquirer acquire the language, generally acquiring happen in informal situation. Okay, like at home, like at the market, like at the playground. Okay, so the acquirer, the learner, acquire the language in informal context, like at home, okay, at school, at the market, okay, everywhere, in the community, yes, in a club, for example, yes. And under acquisition, we have uses grammatical field, okay. So when the acquirer of the language speak the language out or produce the language, and then when someone asks why you use such a sentence to convey your meaning, and then the speaker, the acquirer of the language, will answer, I just feel like this. I think, or I feel that this sentence can really convey my meaning, can express, I can express my meaning through this sentence. Okay. Okay. So it's mean the acquirer judge the language, the output according to their feeling. Okay. Their feeling. Yes. Okay. And another one under acquisition, we have involved LAD. LED mean language acquisition device. And LAD located in the brain. You see everyone? So after the acquirer acquire the language, day after day, and then when the input, okay, when the input are enough for them to produce the language out, they can produce the language out. Okay, like children, you see, when you were a baby, okay, when you were born, okay, when you were born, and when you reach the age of 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, you see, your parents talk to you, okay, your parents speak to you, okay, and you are really learning the language, but you don't know, okay. So in the stage, in the period that you just absorb the language, that you just got the input, but you cannot speak out, in this such a period we call silent period. When you were a baby, you know, you do not know how to speak out the language, okay. You just listen to your parent, your older brother and sister, your grandparent just talk to you, just speak to you, but you just listen, you just babbling or something like this, okay. You do not know how to speak, okay. You just listen, you receive the information, you receive the knowledge, okay. Yes. So when the input are enough, when you grow up, when you get the age of 1.5 years, 2 years, and 3 years, you can speak out word by word first, and then phrase, and then clause, and then in sentences, okay, later on, stage after stage, okay. Yes. So the acquirer produce the language through LAD, language acquisition device, in the brain, okay, when they got enough input, okay, from their parent, from their sibling, from the grandparent, okay, from their relative, okay, from their neighbors, okay. Okay, for learning approach, the learner learn the language consciously in an explicit manner, okay. In an explicit manner and consciously mean with your hard working, okay, with your attention. For example, you learn grammar point in the class with your professor, with your lecturer, with your teacher. You see, you learn the language consistently. You try to memorize the formula. You try to memorize the rule, to remember the rule, okay, to practice the rule, to conjugate the verb. For example, I go, we go, they go, you go, she goes, he goes, it goes. You try to remember, to conjugate the verbs like this. You put your effort to remember it. You put all your power, energy to remember the formula, to remember the conjugation of the verb. Okay, this is the meaning. Okay, and learning always happen in formal situation, like in the classroom, okay, in the seminar, okay, in the special course, okay, formal contact, okay, formal situation with the guidance from professor, teacher, professional, okay, lecturer. Yes, this is called learning, okay. And in this approach, the learner judge the language depending on the grammatical rule they have learned, they have memorized, okay. Okay, so they use grammatical rule to judge their sentences, their clauses, their phrases, okay, in the text, in the message, okay. They cannot say, oh, I just feel this way. No, when you produce the sentence out, when you produce the language out, you have to follow the rule, the grammatical rule, the grammatical point, okay, like subject verb agreement, okay, like conjugation of the verb. You cannot say uh, he he go instead of he went. You cannot. You have to go along with the grammatical rule, okay. You have to use the grammatical rule to apply in the language use, okay. This is through learning, okay. Another one is simple complete order of learning, okay. So when you learn, for example, in the class, for example, you have gone through primary school, secondary school, high school, right? Study in grade 1, grade 2, in grade 3, okay. All the stuff you have learned, you see, from the simple thing to the most complex one, okay. So when you study in grade 1, grade 2, you just learn how to subtract, how to add, for example, addition, subtraction only. When you study in the grade at grade 3, grade 4, you start studying division, multiplication, for example, from the simple to the most complex one, with especially the guidance from the teacher, the professor, the specialist sometimes, okay, you see. And if we talk about language learning, you can see you study book 1, okay, and then book 2, and then book 3, you know, you see the text, the content of each unit from the simple one to the most complex one, okay. You can see, right, like uh headway book, you see, pre-elementary, elementary, okay, intermediate, advanced, upper, blah blah blah, okay. Like you climbing a ladder, okay, from the lowest level to the higher level, and then you reach the highest potential, okay. Okay, so let me sum up. So according to Stephen Krashen, okay, there are two approaches toward language acquisition. Okay, the first one through acquiring and another one through learning. Okay, and the process are different, like what we have explained, okay, earlier. Okay. Okay, everyone. So right now, go to the second hypothesis by Krashen. Okay, I like Krashen very much. Okay, thank you, Krashen, for your 5 hypotheses. Okay, in language acquisition. I really appreciate your works. Okay. Okay. So this is the second one we call monitor hypothesis. Okay, we 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 also apply this hypothesis in the first hypothesis, acquisition and learning. Okay, so in acquisition approach, we just initiate a trend. We just initiate a speaking, a talking. I can say initiate a speech. Okay, when after the silent period. As I mentioned earlier, as I explained earlier, when you just 2 week, 3 week, 4 week of age, you cannot speak, right? It just you are in the silent period. Okay, your language acquisition ability is in silent period. You cannot talk, you cannot speak, you can produce the language, but the thing is you just acquiring, just learning the language. Okay, just try to accumulate input and keep in your LAD, language acquisition device. Okay, so when the input enough, you can produce the input out. We call the output. Okay, so we just initiate the utterance when the input is enough. Okay, so the acquisition center would produce language. The acquisition center means LAD. Okay, LAD. So when you're small baby, you cannot talk back to your parent. You just listen to your parent, listen to your older brother and sister, listen to your parent or grandparents, for example. You just listen. You accumulate the input, you accumulate the information, you accumulate the knowledge and keep in LAD. Okay, and one day when you have enough ability, when you have enough input, you can produce the language out. You can understand the language clearly. And then you can talk back to them. You can speak back to them in a meaningful way. Okay. Okay. And if the output matches, output, right? The language, oral or written speech, or oral or written language that we produce out. Okay, like our writing, like our speech, we call the output. If the output matches, if the output meaningful, and then there's no problem. It's okay. See, you can have a good conversation with your parents, with your grandparents, with your brothers and sister. Okay, as long as you understand each other. Okay, you see, no pressure, no scoring criteria. Okay, you just acquire the language subconsciously. Okay, subconsciously in an implicit way. Okay, yes. Okay, so right now look at the monitor hypothesis in learning approach. Okay, in learning approach, or we can say we look at the learning approach through monitor hypothesis. Okay, everyone. So you see, learning. What the student is or has been learning will allow the student to monitor output. Okay, So right now, let me explain you. Let me tell you another way to make it easy for you to understand. A1, for example, I teach you how to create first conditional. Okay, so I tell you A1 in the if clause, you have if, you have subject, you have present simple or verb, okay, verb one, okay, and then in the result clause, you have subject, you have verb one, for example, okay. So one day, or when you want to share your idea, you speak the language out by using something related to the content related to first conditional. You have to use the rule, the formula of the first conditional to apply in your output, in your language. Okay, everyone. So, for example, I ask you, everyone, can you create one sentence about first conditional? Okay, so one of you, for example, one of you will answer, okay, teacher, can we put it like this? When we expose eye to the sunlight, it melts away. Okay, so the student use monitoring, okay, use editing one time already before they produce the language out. They think, oh, I should put if first and then subject. If we expose eyes to the sunlight, okay, you monitor, you edit one time already, and then you produce the language out, you speak the language out, okay. And then after you speak the language out, after you produce the output, you try to monitor and edit the language again. Okay, let me give you another example. When you write a paragraph, okay, everyone, you always try the first draft, right? First of all, you have to write a first draft. Okay, and first draft is something that you write down from what coming to your mind, coming to your brain, right? You think like this, like this, like this. I should write in this way, I should think this way. Okay, you write down. Okay, monitoring and editing happen one time already, but it's not enough. After you write the first draft, you will go back from the start again, read and try to check in case of, just in case of mistake, problem, error. Okay, you go back and read again. Okay, just in case. Okay, so this time you monitor and edit one more time. Okay, so to make your language more meaningful, okay, to make your output more meaningful, it needs monitoring and editing twice. Okay, two times. Okay, okay. And if the language produced is not correct, you see, if the language produced is not correct, then the monitoring of the learning system will have correct the acquisition center one more time. Okay, yes. Okay, okay, so this is the three condition, okay, to use the monitor, okay, in monitor hypothesis. Okay, so according to Krashen, for the monitor to be successful, use three conditions must be met. Okay, so first of all, the acquirer, the learner, have to know the rule, must know the rule. You have to remember the rule. You have to memorize the formula. Okay, you have to memorize the rules, the grammatical rules, subject verb agreement, conditional clause, okay, conjugation of verb. You You have to remember. You have to know. Okay. You have to memorize. Okay. 2, the second one. The acquirer, the learner must be focused on correctness and form. Okay. So when you monitor, the acquirer have to focus on the correctness, the form, accuracy. Okay. Is it right grammatically, okay, or not? You have to focus on this. Is it meaningful? Okay. It is used in the right context. Okay. You have to know all of this. Okay, the third one, the acquirer learner must have time to use the monitor. This means the acquirer, the learners have to monitor the output again after the output are produced. Okay. Yes. Okay. So it is the warning, Krashen warning. Okay. Overuser. Okay. So if we overuse, okay, overuse monitoring and editing, it means if we are always monitoring and editing our output, okay, our output will suffer fluency. Okay, when the acquirer, the speaker, will suffer fluency. They cannot speak the language fluently. Okay, so you have to remember, don't use monitoring and editing too much. Okay, so when you teach a student, everyone, please focus on fluency of your student. Okay, don't interrupt them, don't make correction when your student are speaking or are talking about something. Okay, just let it be sometime. You see, don't use monitoring and editing too much, too often. Okay, yes. 2, under user. It means you rarely monitor or edit the output. So accuracy will suffer. Okay, if you don't monitor, if you don't edit, like you write a paragraph, if you just write the first time and then you take it as your final draft, you see, you will see many mistakes there. Okay, grammatical mistake there, problem there. Okay, many errors there. So your speech will lack of accuracy. Okay, so you should use monitor and edit approach, okay, to make your speech, to make your output, to make your writing more accurate. Okay, one, yes. So according to Krashen, you have to balance the two above. Okay, don't use monitoring and editing too much. Okay, and don't use monitoring and editing in a very rare case. Okay, so you have to balance the two. If you think monitoring and editing is needed, you have to monitor, you have to edit the output. If you think monitoring and editing is not important this time, you should just let it be. Okay, this is the meaning. Okay, so right now let's come to the third hypothesis by Krashen. Okay, we call natural order hypothesis. Okay, so according to Krashen, the learner, the acquirer, should learn the language in natural order. Okay, so right here we have two columns. Okay, language, first language by Brown 1973, and second language learning by Dule and Bird 1973. Okay, and underneath are the natural order of stuff that the acquirer and the learner should have gone through one after another. Okay, so for the first language learner, they should learn first of all present progressive in form of the verb, and then plural of noun, and then they should learn about irregular or acquire irregular past. Okay, possessive, article, the, okay, so on and so forth, like this. And the second column, second language acquisition or learning, okay, they should have gone through these orders. Okay, so first of all, they should learn about article, the, and then they should learn, acquire present progressive, inform, plural, okay, regular past. Okay, because if they have learned all of this in good order, in good natural order, okay, they can predict what gonna happen and what gonna happen next in the sentence, in the class. For example, if someone tell him or her that, okay, yesterday when I was sleep, blah blah blah. Okay, before the speaker continue, the listener, okay, the learner, the acquirer will understand, oh, it's gonna be informed. Yesterday when I was sleep must be sleeping. Okay, because they know clearly about progressive form, info, for example, and they have known clearly about the past tense, for example. You see, so when the learner learn stuff in natural order like this, okay, it gonna have the learner or the acquirer learn or acquire the language in a very efficient way. Okay, yes. Okay, we acquire the rules of language in a predictable order. Okay, the acquirer should acquire the language in this order. Okay, see, yes. Okay, so right now let's come to the first one, input hypothesis. Okay, but right now I will tell you what is input, okay, to make it clear for you. Okay, so the first question is, what is input? Okay, so the answer, input refer to oral or written language that a learner receive. Okay, so this is called input. Okay, when you read something, when you listen to something, okay, you receive the knowledge, you receive the information, okay, you receive some idea from the others. Okay, so all of this we call input. Okay, input, we can get input from receptive skill, listening and reading. Okay, listening and reading. Macro skill, the two macro skill, reading and listening, create input. Okay, what we read, what we have read, and what we have listened to become our input. Okay, so the more you read, the more you listen to others, the more input you have in your LAD, language acquisition device, in your brain. Okay, yes. So input, again, input refer to oral written language that a learner receive, that a learner or an acquirer receive. Okay, so input. In what way does it promote language acquisition? Okay, so right now let's go to input hypothesis so that we can answer for this question. Okay, answer to this question. Okay, input hypothesis. Okay, according to Krashen, input is very important. It's crucial. Okay, it's the only way people learn the language. It is the only way an acquirer acquire the language. Okay, but we have to make input more comprehensible. Okay, to make language learning or language acquisition really happen. Okay, okay, so input should be sufficient quality. Okay, if you want to have good output, query output, you have to have sufficient query input. Okay, yes, and the input should be understandable. Okay, input must be understood. Okay, otherwise learning acquisition cannot happen. Learning cannot happen, acquisition cannot happen if the input cannot be understood. Okay, so when you teach your student, when you teach your younger brother and sister, all the input, all the information, all the text, all the speak must be understood, have to be understood by your student, by your younger brother and sister. Okay, otherwise your speech, otherwise your text will be a shit, a bullshit for them. Okay, they will learn nothing, they will get nothing from your message. They cannot get the message across. They don't understand anything. Okay, so the input can be understood. Okay, language improve when there's comprehensible input, level I+1, one step beyond learner's current stage. Okay, so when you teach your student, when you teach your younger brother and sister, all the text, all the message should be I+1 for them. I mean comprehensible input, mean their current stage, their current ability, and +1, a bit higher than their ability, a bit higher than their current ability. If today you teach them how to multiply 2 multiplied by 2 equal 4, okay, tomorrow you can teach them 2 multiplied by 3, a bit harder. You see, 2 multiplied by 2, right now 2 multiplied by 3, and then equal to 6. You see, a bit higher, a step ahead of their current state or their current ability. Okay, and if the text, if the message have the I+1 query there, the text of the message really work best for your student, for your learner, for your younger brother and sister. Okay, so you have to use this formula in your material, okay, in your speech, in your explanation. Okay, yes. Okay, and the last one, how do parents, teacher, more competent speaker modify their speech so that the input becomes comprehensible? You see, you always use the word comprehensible input, but how? How to make the input more comprehensible, become comprehensible? Okay, so you have to follow something in the next slide, and it's right here. Okay, so the teacher, the parent, the more competent people can modify their input to make the input comprehensible through slowing rate of delivery. Okay, they have to speak in a slow motion, in a slow pace. Don't speak too fast. Don't speak very fast. Okay, you have to speak at the listener ability to understand the message, to get the message across. Okay, and another one, you have to use higher pitch. Okay, loud enough for them. Don't speak in a whispering manner. They cannot understand well. You see, you have to use a higher pitch. Everyone, today I would like all of you to read the text and tell me what tenses are used in the text. Okay, I give you 10 minutes to do it. You see, you have to use a higher pitch. The level of loudness must be appropriate. Okay, in the distance between the speaker and the listener. Okay, okay, and another one, you have to vary your intonation. Intonation means the up and down of the language. You have to vary to tell the listener which word you want to stress. Okay, which one is the key word in your sentence. Okay, which word is the most important one in the sentence. Okay, and another one, you have to short to make your sentence pattern shorter and simpler. You have to use KISS strategy, KISS. Keep it short and simple. Okay, don't use compound complex sentence for them. If you think they cannot understand, you just use simple sentence or compound sentence or sometimes complex sentence, but do not use compound and complex sentence. Okay, sometimes because of the listener ability, they cannot understand. Okay, so you have to know all of this. And another one, you have to stress on the right word, the key word. Okay, which one you want to stress, which word you want to stress, to make the listener recognize the key word, know which word is the main word, the main content in the sentence, in the clause. Okay, yes. And you have to frequent repetition. Sometimes you have to repeat one more time, okay, to make the content clear for the listener. Okay, okay, so these are some add-ons. Okay, add-ons, something you have to do more. Okay, so In order for input to benefit the language learning process, it has to meet the following requirement. This is according to Rinandya 2011. Okay, Rinandya. Okay, so the input has to be comprehensible. Yes, you know already how to make it comprehensible, right? Okay, you have to use I plus one, for example. Sometimes you have to repeat. You should use simple sentence pattern, for example. Okay, and another one, it has to be abundantly and reliably available. Okay, you can get the information, you can get the knowledge, you can see the language pattern everywhere. Okay, and the information and the language is reliable. Okay, the scholar also use this, the professor also use this word, this sentence in this context. For example, the sentence, the meaning must be reliable. Okay, and it has to be frequently encountered. You always see uh, the language. You can you always see the sentence uh, of the target language uh, everywhere. Okay, I can see the slogan uh, on my door of my bedroom, for example. You see, frequently encountered. You always see them. See the language. Okay, see the sentences. See the slogan. See the proverb in the target language. Okay. Yes. It has to contain language features that are slightly beyond the learner current level. Yes, I plus one right here. So if, for example, if they study elementary, okay, elementary or pre-intermediate, you should teach them how to write simple sentence and compound sentence, for example. And when they come to intermediate, okay, advanced, you can teach them how to write complex sentence, okay, like this. And in upper level, you can teach them how to write compound and complex sentences. Okay, yes, in order, in order. And you have to use I plus one formula, okay? It has to contain language feature that engage the learner's attention, okay? All the feature of the language you use should be attractive to the learner, okay? Should be interesting to the learner, okay? If they are interested, they will pay all their attention to listen, to get the meaning, to get the message across, okay? They will be all their ears, okay? Okay, so right here is a picture of Rinandia, okay, Dr. Willie Rinandia, okay. He's very famous for extensive reading, listening strategy, okay. Yes, so right now let's go a step further, okay. Extensive exposure to comprehensible input through reading, listening is crucial, okay. The longer, the more you read, the more or the longer you listen, the more input you have, the more knowledge you have, the more language you have, and the more output you can produce in terms of the language, in terms of the information, and in terms of the idea you get, you receive, okay, from the reading, from the listening. Okay, so according to Krashen, okay, in 2004, he suggested that comprehensible input is the only way, okay, it is the only way to acquire a second language, okay, comprehensible input. Okay, and Christian view may be a bit too strong. Many researchers tend to disagree with him. You see, many researchers think in different way and they try to support their finding, okay, but different from what Krashen suggested here, okay. So it is, I can say it is the greatest war, the best war. Whichever party win, you still have to learn a great deal of the language, right? Whether Krashen you win, or the other researcher you win, you still have to learn a great deal of the language, okay? But anyway, just go deeper in Krashen hypothesis. I also support this hypothesis. I really appreciate Dr. Krashen, Stefan Krashen, right? Yes, I really appreciate him, okay, for his 5 hypotheses. Okay. Okay, so this is according to NATO 1982, page 168, okay, in the book called Teaching Reading Skill in a Foreign Language. Okay, so there it goes like this. In the book, the best way to improve one's knowledge of a foreign language is to go and live among its speaker. The next best way is to read extensively in it. Okay, this is according to NATO. You live in a community, okay, in a country that your target language, in which your target language is used, you can improve it in a very fast manner. You can learn or acquire it in a very fast manner. Okay, the same, the more you read, you do the extensive reading, the longer you read, the more idea you get, the more fluency you get, and then you can produce the language dependently. Okay, yes. Okay, so right now, this is the picture of the text, okay, by Dr. Charles Brown, okay, during his presentation during ICTA conference 2019, okay. So Dr. Charles Brown showed 3 kind of text, okay. The first one with the content like this, okay, and the content can be understood. 75% of the content can be understood by the audience, by the reader, and this text, the second text, 85% of the content right here can be understood by the reader, by the audience, okay, and another one, 90% of the text can be understood by the audience and the reader. And then he asked, okay, and he explained, he asked which one is the best for I+1, okay. So according to Krashen and according to the presenter, the third one should be the best because it contain 95% of 90% of the content that can be understood by the audience, by the reader. So the remaining 5% can be guessed, okay. The meaning can be guessed by the reader and by the audience. So this works best for language acquisition, okay, language learning. This works best, okay. Yes. So according to Krashen and the presenter right here, but the presenter also based on Krashen theory as well, Krashen notion as well. So I can say according to Krashen, okay, the text with 90% to 95% of the content that can be understood by the audience, by the reader, work best for learning or acquiring the language. And it follow the formula I+1, okay, I+1. So this one is the best. Okay, so there are 2 points, okay, interesting as well for you guys. So you have to know that, you should know that 600,000 words, there are 600,000 words in English, okay, and an adult native speaker would know about 30,000 words, okay. You should know about this as well. A learner need to know about 2,800 high frequency words to understand 92% of every daily speech, newspaper, book, magazine, TV show, or movie. Okay, high frequency words that are always used by the people around. Okay, yes. And if you want to know more about the interesting point, you should go to this website, www.eapfoundation.com/vocab/general/ngsl/, okay, and then you're gonna have a pool of them. Okay, okay, so right now we come to the fifth one, the last one, the last hypothesis, called affective filter hypothesis. Okay, so right here we have a mental block caused by affective factors that prevent input from reaching the language acquisition divide. This is according to Krashen, 1985, page 100. Okay, so if you want to understand this, you have to know what is affective factor. Affective factor refer to two kinds of factor. The first one is positive factor. The second one refer to the negative one. Positive factor, it can be motivation, motivation, self-confidence, self-esteem, okay, blah, blah, blah. And for the negative affective factor, we have stress, anxiety, okay, worry, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so a mental block is depend on the negative one: stress, worry, anxiety. So if the learner, if the acquirer have high worry, have high anxiety, have high stress, okay, too much stress, too much stress, too much anxiety, okay, too much worry, and then a mental block also high. Okay, so when it is high, it will prevent input from reaching the language acquisition device we call LAD, located in the brain. Okay, sometimes the input can reach the language acquisition device, but not in full shape. Okay, but it is not in full shape. Only 50% or 60% of the input can reach the language acquisition device. So when the learner or acquirer produce the language out, it also lack of some point. And then it lead to mistake, it lead to error. It depends. Okay. So to make the output more comprehensible, can be understood by the listener, by the reader, okay, the output have to depend on the input, and the input, to make the input in full shape, you have to lower down the mental block, you have to reduce stress, you have to reduce anxiety, you have to reduce worries, okay, And when you can reduce all of them, motivation will be high. You will have much motivation. You will have high self-esteem. You will have high self-confidence. Okay. So when you have high motivation, when you have high self-esteem, okay, the mental block will be down, will be low. Okay. And then all the input can reach the language acquisition device located in the brain. And when the acquirer, when the learner try to produce the language out, because to make the output, to produce the output will be in full shape, in full form. Okay, the output will be understood by the listener, by the reader. Okay, because it in good shape. Okay, so right here you can see stress, anxiety, and other negative affective factor interfere with acquisition and learning. Okay, if the learner acquirer have much stress, anxiety, and other negative affective factors, a mental block will be high, will happen. Okay, so the knowledge, the input cannot reach the language acquisition device, so you cannot produce a good output. See, yes, input may not be processed if the affective filter is up. Yeah, mental block up, it's mean affective filter up the same. A mental block and affective filter the same, up. Okay, and then input cannot be processed, so we cannot make a good output. Lower filter enable input to be processed. Language can be acquired and learned. Like I explained earlier, when lower filter, when the filter is lower, is low, when a mental block is low, you know, the input can reach, the language acquisition device. Language acquisition device is located in our brain. Okay, so when the input can reach the language acquisition device in full shape, and then we can produce the output in full shape as well. The output will be meaningful. The output will be understood by the listener, by the reader. Okay, completely, yes, can be understood completely because the output is in full shape, is in good shape. Okay, yes. So right now you will understand clearer. Okay, when you read the next slide. Okay, so this is affective filter. Okay, A1, affective filter or mental block. So if the mental block right here or affective filter right here high, because the learner have much stress, the learner have much worry, when the learner acquirer have much anxiety, so the filter of affective filter will be high as well. Okay, it will be high, so input cannot reach this one. But when stress low, okay, when the learner, when the acquirer free from stress, the stress low, free from anxiety, anxiety low, free from worry, okay, the worry low, it means the affective filter will be low automatically as well. Okay, so when it is low, the mental blocks low, affective filters low, it cannot prevent the input from reaching the language acquisition device. Okay, so the input can reach the language acquisition device in full shape. Okay, in full shape, in good shape, and then we can produce, the learner, the acquirer can produce the full shape output. Okay, the output in full shape as well. Okay, right here. So when they produce the output, they will monitor one time already, and then they produce the language out. We call the output. They write the first draft. When they write, they just monitoring one time already. They think which one comes first, subject or verb, and then adverb. They have to think and then they write out. it becomes the first draft. And when it becomes the first draft, they have to monitor and edit one more time, okay, to make correction, to make the output look more meaningful, okay. They have to edit one more time, and then it becomes the learned knowledge. You see, the final draft, the learned knowledge, how much the writer can write, how much the speaker can speak. We call learned knowledge, okay. Okay, so these are some questions, okay, to be raised for your opinion. Okay, so first one, based on your experience, what do you think of Krashen 5 hypothesis and the monitor model? Okay, is it helpful? Do you think is it useful? Okay, why? Okay, the second one, what are the problem of Krashen hypothesis? Okay, what are the problems? Because Krashen hypothesis look very, very beautiful, very, very workable. But what are some problems behind that? Okay. Okay, and another one provide explanation and example of how filter can be increased or decreased in language learning. Okay, so the filter up or low, it depends on the negative affective factor, right? Like stress, worry, problem, for example. Okay, you have to explain this. Okay, so thank you so much, everyone, and I hope that you understand clearly about the 5 hypotheses by Krashen. Okay, because these 5 hypotheses really, really important for language acquisition. Okay, yes, you have to know all of this, and if you want to know more or you want to go deeper in the 5 hypotheses in language acquisition, you can go through this website. Okay, yes. Okay, so at the end, okay, I would like to tell you about the biography of Stephen Krashen. Okay, Stephen Krashen born on May 14th, 1941. Okay, the 14th of May 1941. He's a professor emeritus at the University of Southern California. Okay, you know emeritus. Okay, everyone. Emeritus means very famous with uh, many works done there. Okay, called emeritus. Like he have written 300 books, for example. You see, this is very emeritus. He is a linguist. Okay, he is a linguist, educational researcher, and political activist as well. Okay, and Krashen has among papers and book more than 486 publications. You see, he has a lot of works. That's why we call him a emeritus professor. Okay. Krashen promote the use of free voluntary reading during second language acquisition, which he says is the most powerful tool we have in language education, first and second. Okay. First language and second language. Okay. Stephen Krashen. Stephen Krashen has a PhD in linguistics. Okay, he got a PhD. He's the author of more than 250 articles about second language acquisition, bilingual education, and neuro-linguistics. Okay. Krashen has 6 hypotheses on the field of language acquisition, but at the moment we just learned 5 hypotheses only. So if you want to know more, please go and try to observe, try to read the article about language acquisition by Stephen Krashen. You will know about this. Okay, you will know more about the hypothesis. Okay, so right here you see the 5 hypotheses created by found by Krashen. Okay. See, the first one, acquisition learning hypothesis. Acquisition, you learn subconsciously, you acquire the language subconsciously, okay, in an implicit process. Okay. Learning, you always have it in formal instruction, okay, like by instruction by your teacher, by your professor, by specialists, for example. Okay. And the second one, monitoring hypothesis, acquisition, utterance, okay, learning, monitor, editor. Okay, so we have applied monitor hypothesis in acquisition approach. Okay, so you can make utterance when the input enough in your LAD, language acquisition device, located in your brain. Okay, and learning, you have to use monitoring and editing, okay, to produce the language out, to make the output. Okay, so the output and the utterance the same. And overuse monitoring and editing, it will affect your fluency. Okay, if you rarely use monitoring and editing, your accuracy will suffer. Okay, yes, so you have to optimize between the two. Okay, you have to balance them. If you think monitoring and editing is important, you have to do it. If you think it's not important, monitoring and editing is not important, just let it be. Okay, to improve fluency. Okay, and the third one is throughout the hypothesis, acquisition of numerical structure follow a natural order which is predictable. Okay, so you have to learn thing in natural order as suggested by Krashen. Okay, which one should learn first, which one should learn second. Okay, you have to follow in natural order. Okay, and then the first one, input hypothesis. Okay, so according to Krashen, input, comprehensible input is the only way to learn or acquire the language. Okay, and the comprehensible input should use the formula I+1. Okay, and affective filter hypothesis, the last hypothesis. Okay, you can see here. Okay, sorry everyone. You can see here. Okay, so affective filter hypothesis, it depends on stress, anxiety, worry. You have to load them down in the learner or in the acquirer mind. Okay, if they are motivated, if they have high self-esteem, if they have my confidence, the filter will be low or the mental block will be low, and then they will learn the language in a very fast manner, efficiently. Okay, yes. So I think this is all about the five hypothesis by Krashen. Okay, and thank you so much, everyone. I hope you understand a lot. Okay, from this. Okay, thank you.